Jim, the presidential election is on everyone's minds. We've had that first debate and it's over. Now we're wondering what are the changes between the polls versus the betting markets? Biden appears to be in the lead, but what's the latest?
Yes, both ways you cut it, the polls or the betting markets, Biden is leading, but there's a big difference. In the polls, if you go with the national average poll, he's leading about 6 points, maybe 7 points or so, and that's a pretty healthy lead. If you go by the state-by-state polls, Biden has got about 350 electoral college votes. He only needs 270. So poll analyzers like Nate Silver, 538, are giving Biden an 80% chance of winning the election. The Economist magazine has a poll analyzing group. They're giving Biden about an 85 to 88% chance of winning the election. And Charlie Cook of the Cook Report, another poll analyzer, has been on record for the last 2 months saying he can't find a path to Trump getting 270 electoral college votes to win the election. So if you go by the polls, it's over. And we're basically arguing the size of a Biden victory. But if you look at the betting markets, it's a different story. Biden is still leading, but the betting markets have him at around 42% to win the election. Couple before the debate, they hit him as high as 46%. This is Trump to win the election versus 20% by Nate Silver and 13% by the Economist magazine. So really, it comes down to Biden is leading, but according to the bettors, it's very close. According to the pollsters, it's not close. Now, why make that difference? Last thing I'll bring up to you is, and this is investors. So a Survation is a polling group out of the UK, and they surveyed last week 91 investment professionals. 60% of them said that they thought Biden would win. Betting market has them at 59, 60, 61, somewhere right in there. So it's same number. September 15th, 2 weeks ago, CNBC surveyed about 60 investment professionals. 44% of them had Trump winning. Trump is trading in the betting market around 42. So investors' view is right in line with the betting market view. So if you think the polls are correct and that Trump has a 13 to 20% chance to win, that's not where investors are. Investors are more in the low 40s. There is still more Biden discounting to come. This market is not in line with the polls. I'm going to refrain from saying which one is right or which one is wrong, only because I can't find an example before where the betting markets and the polls differed. They're usually the same thing. And the benefit of the betting markets is they react faster to things like debates and stuff like that if there's a change in what happened. But rarely have I found them to be different. Now, again, both of them think Biden's going to win, but one of them has it very close and the other one doesn't have it very close.
Can you talk a little bit more about how this election is going to impact the financial markets?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, of course, is that we have to see which way. I suspect that this divergence between the betting markets and the polls will close by election day. I just don't know which way. Will it be that the bettors will fall down to 15% chance of Trump winning, and investors will follow and give Trump a 15% chance of winning? If that's the case, then I suspect that markets will struggle. One of the reasons I think that Trump has been so market positive is he's been a big regulation cutter. And that if you look at measures like the Federal Register's number of pages or any other objective measures of regulation, they're way down. And that has been a big boon for markets and profitability. Well, Biden is on record that he thinks that's a problem and he wants to re-regulate industry and he wants to raise taxes. I think that, those things alone are negative for the market. Now, there are other things that are going to affect the market over the same time, whether we get stimulus, how we're going to come out of COVID, will there be a second wave, and those things. So maybe those that, Biden winning is a market negative, but some of these other things could turn out to be positive. Maybe we find a vaccine, there isn't a second wave, we get a stimulus bill that Wall Street likes, market net goes up because it just overwhelms what's happening with the election.
You touched a little bit on Trump's approval rating and also the ballot, the generic ballot.
Yeah, so Trump's approval rating, and what I'm going to use here is 538, Nate Silver's website, puts together a composite approval rating. They use like 50 polling services and they update it every day. And so they give you a trend of all of the polling services. And two things to note. First of all, Trump's total range of his approval rating has been from 39% to 46%. So something like 7 points. And if you go plus or minus 1 standard deviation, it's been plus or minus 4 points. Not only is this the tightest range any president has ever had, it is the tightest range by far that any president ever had. Other presidents could see their polling numbers move 5 or 6 points from poll to poll. Trump has had 5 or 6 points in 3.5 years from extreme to extreme. So one, he's really locked in on his approval rating. It doesn't move in total. Second, if you look at the last couple of months, it has been trending higher from the lower end of his range, around 40%, to up near 43%. Oh, that doesn't sound like a lot, but given his small range, it actually is. And I would argue that his approval rating has moved up more than he has in the head-to-head polling for him winning against
Jim,
Biden.
we've had a listener that submitted a question. I wanted to run it by you, and I think it's very representative of what might be on a lot of people's minds. What if there is not a clear winner? It's January 20th, 2021. No one has been declared. Can you kind of walk us through what happens next in this scenario?
Yeah, from Ghostbusters, dogs and cats living together, it's the end of the world. It's all going to be ugly and nasty. But seriously, let me run through a couple of scenarios for you. The first one is the Red Mirage. This is a phrase that left-wing sites like Axios and Vox have dubbed. Most of the pollsters will tell us that election day, people that go to the polling places will tend to skew more Republican. People that vote mail-in will tend to skew more Democrat. So it's possible that on election night, you're up at 1 a.m. and you're watching the polls, watching the election returns, Trump has won enough states that he has more than 270 electoral college votes. And he comes out and he says, I won. Then the next morning, they start counting the mail-in ballots. And one by one, Trump loses this state and that state and this state. And by the way, I'm not suggesting anything nefarious or fraud. That's another issue. This could be legitimately the case. And that by Thanksgiving, Trump has no longer won as well in the election. The problem I see with that scenario is if the guy that declares victory election night, or is at least leading election night, is not the ultimate victor, there is going to be a real problem on our hands in terms of credibility of the election.